The Atlanta Falcons have fired head coach Arthur Smith. And here to help break it all down is the illustrious host of the Locked On Falcons podcast, Aaron Freeman. I am Ross Jackson, Locked On NFL expert. Aaron, now that Arthur Smith is no longer the head coach for the Atlanta Falcons, what's next for the franchise?
Well, obviously, they're going to have to find a new head coach, but at the same time, they're going to have to get a new quarterback. That's going to be the big topic of conversation. Now it's going to be someone else's choice for a quarterback, and I think that was a big reason that led to the dismissal of Arthur Smith with his choices of quarterback, starting with Matt Ryan, then Marcus Mariota, then Desmond Ridder, then Taylor Heinicke, and it felt like even though they were not necessarily the sort of plan A's for the Atlanta Falcons, given the struggles of all of those quarterbacks here in Atlanta, it didn't feel like Arthur Smith, quote unquote, deserved another chance to find a fifth quarterback in 4 years. And I think that's going to be sort of the big question for any of the impending hires is, what is your plan for the Atlanta Falcons at quarterback?
So is the quarterback situation, or just not finding success with a litany of quarterbacks, is that kind of the pinnacle reasoning behind Arthur Smith being moved on from, or were there other underlying factors?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors. Obviously, it's never as simple as we like to make it believe, but I do think the quarterback situation was the biggest part of it, right? Like when you look at this Falcons season, there were a lot of expectations. They would compete in a down NFC South for the division. And while they were, in the mix at the end of the season, they had fallen short, and a lot of that was owed to, subpar quarterback play due to a lot of turnovers. The offense took a significant step back. The running game, which was kind of the hallmark of Arthur Smith's offense, regressed this year. And so you're kind of looking at Arthur Smith and you're like, what exactly do you do here if you can't figure out the quarterback and the run game's not working? The defense did make strides this year. It didn't look like it those last couple of games against the Bears and Saints, but I think you look at the situation, the offense just was the thing that kept holding back the Atlanta Falcons, and a lot of that is going to boil down to the quarterback position.
Gotcha. So when you're looking at replacing Arthur Smith, who are some of the top candidates that stand out to you, Aaron?
Well, Ben Johnson's probably the hottest name right now, the Lions offensive coordinator. Although it's interesting that it's interesting that Ben Johnson and Arthur Smith's resume look very similar, to the point that they were both college teammates at UNC many, many years ago. But I think those are going to be the hot names. You always look at these coaching hires as they're going to go in an opposite direction. And Arthur Blank, the Falcons owner, has consistently hired first-time head coaches, with the one exception being Bobby Petrino, he who shall not be named here in Atlanta, in 2007, who was a college head coach. So you wonder if that's going to scare him off from, say, hiring someone like a Jim Harbaugh. But if they were going to go for a more experienced coach, Bill Belichick brings a lot of cachet at this point in time. Would the Falcons be willing to give up draft assets, which is probably what it would take to bring him down in Atlanta and give him complete control of the organization? That is something that I think is potentially on the table. I don't know how quite I feel about that, given that post Brady, Bill Belichick has not looked like the type of coach that you want to give complete control to as an organization. But I think those are sort of the top candidates for the Falcons. And then a lot of the other top candidates are like defensive coordinators, Dan Quinn, Raheem Morris. They have connections previously to this regime. They're not going to bring back Dan Quinn. Maybe they think about bringing back Raheem Morris. He did a decent job as the interim head coach back in 2020. And, his star has only gotten brighter in the year since with the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, and this only gets a little bit more complicated with the fact that Arthur was also the play caller for the offense. So that ends up changing a lot when it comes to the offensive coordinator conversation as well. With the Atlanta Falcons set to draft at pick 8, as we take a look at maybe where some of the quarterbacks go and how the quarterback situation in Atlanta goes, you think that's going to be a big part of maybe what that new head coach's plan has to be? Is would they be willing to draft a quarterback in the first round in the top 10?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's going to be a big question. The question that always comes up, if you're picking 8th, are you going to love the quarterbacks that are going to be there? that is going to be something that we'll obviously be talking about a lot on Locked On Falcons over the next couple of months as that story develops and we get a clearer picture of how this draft is going to go. But I think certainly that is definitely on the table for the Falcons. And I think a lot of people will expect them at this point in time. We'll see how things develop over the next couple of months. But I think a lot of people will expect them to take a quarterback that high in the draft.
Yeah, so I'll put you on the spot here for just a second. Who do you think should be the next quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons, whether they go the draft route or the potential free agency route? Who would you like to see? Obviously, with the caveat here that every head coach has their own guy.
I would like to see a rookie. I would like to see the Falcons maybe trade up and get one of the top 2 quarterbacks in either Caleb Williams of USC or Drake Maye of North Carolina. That would be my ideal option. After that, I have no idea. Like I know there's going to be a big push for Justin Fields, and that may wind up being the best option of like the plan Bs that the Falcons have if they aren't in love with whoever QB4 is in this draft, and some of the other veteran options that may be available this offseason. That seems to make more sense.
Yeah, that could be a very exciting kind of new era over in Atlanta. If you want to keep up with everything going on with the Falcons and where things could be headed for 2024, Locked On Falcons with Aaron Freeman is the place to be. Here as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Aaron, thanks so much, bud.